Well, thank you very much, Dr. Burgi, for that beautiful introduction. I always like to think of myself as the more handsome Usama than the other one. But we'll begin tonight with recitation with a few verses from the Holy Quran. As Muslims, we believe that the Quran is the direct word of God revealed to the Prophet Muhammad. What you just heard is basically the blessings that everyone says after mentioning the name of the Prophet. And so I'll begin with a few verses of the Holy Quran, then we'll get to the lecture, and then we'll have about 15 or so minutes for Q&A, and then followed, once we're having our breakfast or meal, then hopefully we'll spend some more time for more informal discussion at that stage. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين حبيب إله العالمين المصطفى أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا كل شيء خلقناه بقدر وما ولقد أهلكنا أشياعكم فهل من مدكر وكل شيء فعلوه في الزبر وكل صغير وكبير مستطر إن المتقين في جنات ونهر إن المتقين في جنات ونهر في مقعد صدق عند مليك مقتدر إن المتقين في جنات ونهر في مقعد صدق عند مليك مقتدر الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن إنا أنزلناه في ليلة القدر وما أدراك ما ليلة القدر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أنزلناه في ليلة القدر وما أدراك ما ليلة القدر. ليلة القدر خير من 1000 شهر. تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر. سلام هي حتى مطلع الفجر. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. We'll continue our discussion, inshallah, about this personality that we have been discussing about, and that is Dhul Qarnayn. The verses we were talking about were from Surah Al-Kahf, chapter number 18 of the Holy Quran. And we have come to verse number 88. So I'll begin with that, inshallah, and then I'll continue about the discussion. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فأتبع سببا حتى إذا بلغ مغرب الشمس وجدها تغرب في عين حمئة ووجد عندها قوما. قلنا يا ذا القرنين إما أن تعذب وإما أن تتخذ فيهم حسنا. قال أما من ظلم فسوف نعذبه ثم يرد إلى ربه فيعذبه عذابا نكرا. وأما من آمن وعمل صالحا فله جزاء الحسنى وسنقول له من أمرنا يسرا. ثم أتبع سببا حتى إذا بلغ مطلع الشمس وجدها تطلع على قوم لم نجعل لهم من دونها سترا. كذلك وقد أحطنا بما لديه خبرا. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. So we've been discussing about this personality, Dhul Qarnayn. We said that the Prophet, peace be upon him, was asked about an individual, a king who ruled the east and the west. And so in response, the Prophet replied saying, I will recite verses of the Quran to respond to your question. And he started mentioning the story of this king, who the Quran refers to as Dhul Qarnayn. Literally means the man with two horns. He's either called that because he used to wear a helmet or a crown with two horns, or because he ruled the horn of the east and the horn of the west. His name, there are several theories out there, but the theory that we said was backed up with some recent data and archaeological artifacts. He may have been Cyrus the Great of the Persian Empire. The Quran describes 3 travels that Cyrus the Great, or this personality, Al-Qarnayn, made. The first is to the west. We said that he went far west, maybe around the area of the Atlantic Ocean. And he saw a group of people, a nation there. This group of people, that society, it had some people who were corrupt. And apparently these were the leaders of that society, who did not accept any reforms. To them, it was bad to make a change. The status quo is good. Okay. And then there were those who were being oppressed. So you had the oppressors and the oppressed. Dhul-Qarnayn came and he preached to everyone to work together justly, fairly. But of course, these people who are the elites, the oppressors, did not like that. And hence God Almighty told Dhul-Qarnayn that you either punish or you forgive. He said, those who are causing corruption, we will have to stop them until justice is served and justice prevails. And that's what he did. So those people lost the control, justice was served, and Dhul-Qarnayn says, he says, قال أما من ظلم فسوف نعذبه ثم يرد إلى ربه فيعذبه عذابا نكرا. Those who oppress, those who are tyrants, we will punish them by taking all their goods away from them, by taking their rights away from them. But then, when they return to their Lord, He will have another punishment awaiting them. And this is something that we believe in. In fact, all the Abrahamic faiths believe in a day of resurrection, where every human being will be held accountable for his or her actions. For us Muslims, there are 5 essential beliefs, what we call the roots of the religion. Okay. Do you know what is the root of the religion? What is the first one? Tawheed, ahsan. Tawheed, which is the belief in the one God. And this one God has no partners, no associates. This God created the heavens and the earth and everything that exists within them. This God is knowledgeable, is powerful, is great. This is the essence of monotheism, Tawheed. Then, what is the second one? That's later on. Prophethood. Prophethood. Nubuwwah. Nubuwwah, which is the belief in all the prophets, from Adam to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he is the last messenger. Okay. And the third one is the belief in the day of resurrection, Ma'ad or Qiyamah. The day of the resurrection, where we will all be resurrected alive and we will be held accountable for our actions. Another belief is what? Adala, which is basically Allah's or God's divine justice. That God is just in all the actions He does. And the fifth one, for us the followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, it is what? Imamah. Imamah, which is the belief in divine succession. Now interestingly, this is what defines a Muslim. The belief in these fundamental doctrines is what defines a Muslim. When someone says, I'm a Muslim, say, what does it mean that you're a Muslim? It means I believe in God, I believe in all the prophets, and I believe in the day of resurrection. Okay. This is what really defines a Muslim. Okay. All these things, we can prove them using logic and rationale. These 5 things, they can all be proven by logic and reason. We don't need to refer to, for example, a verse from the Quran to prove that there is a God and God is one. We don't need, for example, to refer to the Quran to prove that there are prophets. All these could be proven using reason. And a few lectures back I gave an example where I said that scientists today, they look for causes. They try to figure out what causes certain phenomena that we observe in nature. Scientists today realize everything that we observe in nature must have a cause. They try to study these causes. Well, our response, or our extension to that, just like everything in nature has a cause, then what about the existence of the whole universe? That should also have a cause. And it could not have been just a simple random process. There must have been a designer who made this whole thing so perfect and so good the way we observe it today. So these things could be proven using reason and logic. After you prove that there is a God and there is a creator, then you come to this creator who created us. What does he want of us? Well, he wants us to worship him. Well, how do I worship God? So that's when he sent us the prophets. Okay, well, they teach us what happens if we don't worship him. What happens if I oppress other people? Well, there will be justice that will be served. Justice could be served in this world, and justice could be also served in a world after this world. And that is the hereafter, the day of resurrection. After the Prophet Muhammad, who do we turn to when we have questions about religion? Well, we have the divine succession, the imamah. We turn to them, chosen by God, the disciples and the followers of the Prophet Muhammad, the successors of the Prophet Muhammad, 12 of them. And God is divinely just. Dhul Qarnayn says, we will serve justice on this earth, but those people who cause corruption, they will have to face another justice when they leave this world. That's with God. As far as those who are good, virtuous, we will deal with them also with mercy. Justice will also be served with them. It says, وَأَمَّا مَنْ آمَنَ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا فَلَهُ جَزَاءً الْحُسْنَى. We'll reward him with virtue. Anyone who does good deeds, a virtuous person, we will reward them with kindness. God says in another ayah in the Quran, هَلْ جَزَاءُ الْإِحْسَانِ إِلَّا الْإِحْسَانِ. The reward for kindness is nothing but kindness. The reward for virtue is nothing but virtue. Any act of virtue you do in this world, no matter how small it is, and no matter to what it is, even if you do an act of virtue to an animal, God will reward you for it. Even if you plant a seed, so that this seed would one day grow to become a fruit that people can use, God will reward you for it. So justice will be served. Anyone who does good deeds, he will be rewarded with kindness. What else? وَسَنَقُولُ لَهُ مِنْ أَمْرِنَا يُسْرًا. And we will be also rewarding those who are virtuous, who are kind. Maybe we'll decrease their taxes. We'll try to help them out to the best of our ability. So that is the reward for those who are virtuous in this world compared to those who are non-virtuous. Then, this was the first trip of Dhul Qarnayn. This is to the west. Then there is another trip. This time it's to the east. Quran says, ثُمَّ أَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا. He sought the means. You know, carrying an army, to have an army to go and cross the deserts. This army, you know, you need to plan how to take care of this army, where to stop, when to stop, and so on and so forth. Dhul Qarnayn, this king, had all these strategies laid out, all these means. He went far east this time. Now, Quran says, حَتَّى إِذَا بَلَغَ مَطْلِعَ الشَّمْسِ, until he arrived to the east, where the sun rises. A reference to the east. Okay. وَجَدَهَا تَطْلُعُ عَلَىٰ قَوْمٍ لَمْ نَجْعَلْ لَهُم مِّن دُونِهَا سِتْرًا. He arrived to a place where he found some people lived a very simple life. In fact, those people did not even have houses, did not even have tents. They apparently lived in the desert. The Quran describes that, saying, وَجَدَهَا تَطْلُعُ عَلَىٰ قَوْمٍ لَمْ نَجْعَلْ لَهُم مِّن دُونِهَا سِتْرًا. He saw the sun rising on people who did not have anything to shelter them from the sun. Today, when you get the sun, it's too hot, try to find a shelter somewhere. Okay. Those people did not even have that. Apparently, they were living a very simple lifestyle. Very simple. They did not even have the intellect to develop. They were living in such a simple lifestyle. Very simple. And in fact, you know, the other day I was reading, there's a journal called the National Geographic. I don't know if you're familiar with the National Geographic. I was going through it. There are still tribes in the world today. No, the tribe that I was reading about is somewhere in Indonesia. Somewhere in Indonesia there is a tribe that still is living such a lifestyle. They have absolutely no technology. You know, they don't have any homes that are built. You know, simple homes that they have. They're made from trees. You know, the clothes, they don't even have proper clothes. You know, just simple attire that they wear. So until this day and age, even in this 21st century, we still have some people who are living such a lifestyle. Such tribes. Nonetheless, Dhul-Qarnayn came across such people. Now he was surprised. كَذَلِكَ وَقَدْ أَحَطْنَا بِمَا لَدَيْهِ خُبْرًا. God says, and we were aware of what he was discovering. To him, he was shocked, he was surprised. You know, he's never seen something like this before. God says, well, we were aware of what he is experiencing. This takes us to a very interesting theory out there. The theory suggests that all these technologies that we see being developed, or all the advancements we see being developed throughout the centuries, they were made and they were developed through the prophets. The prophets of God were the ones who taught their nations, communities, on how to advance according to the lifestyle that they were living. The Quran makes several references. I'll mention only two of them. One is with regards to Prophet Shu'aib. Prophet Shu'aib, in the Bible, he's referred to as Jethro or Yethro. And he's the father-in-law of Prophet Moses. Moses, when he traveled from Egypt to Midian, he married the daughter of Prophet Shu'aib, alayhi salam. Although the Bible does not mention him as a prophet, but it does mention him as a virtuous man. The Quran mentions him as a prophet. And not only a prophet, but also a messenger. And interestingly, Prophet Shu'aib is one of the 5 prophets whose communities and whose tribes spoke Arabic. There are 5 prophets that were sent by Allah who spoke Arabic. Do you know who they are? You know, you only have, you know, a good chance, 5 out of 124,000. You know? There's a good chance, you know. Ibrahim did not speak Arabic, actually. Ibrahim did not speak Arabic. Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, our holy prophet. Prophet Ismail did. Prophet Ismail did because he was raised where? Where was Ismail raised? In Mecca. And that's how he spoke Arabic. Now the prophets, of course, we believe as Muslims that all prophets spoke all languages. They spoke all languages. But what language was their community speaking in? The prophets understand all languages. Allah teaches them all the languages. Some prophets in the Quran, they even know the language of the animals. They would talk to birds, they would talk to animals. Okay. So not only do they know the languages of the humans, even the animals. This is what we believe. But what language did their community speak? What language they teach in? Okay. So Ismail spoke Arabic because that's the environment he grew up in. And then Prophet Shu'aib spoke Arabic. Our Holy Prophet spoke Arabic, and two more. Not Nuh, but Saleh. Saleh, yes, Saleh did, and Hud. Prophet Hud. Prophet Hud. So the tribe of Thamud and the tribe of Ad, they spoke Arabic as well. So 5 prophets spoke Arabic to their communities, to their tribes. Shu'aib is one of them. Shu'aib is one of those 5 prophets. Shu'aib, when he came to his community, when he was sent, his community, they used to be cheaters. They would cheat. And they would think it's smart. They would try when they were selling stuff. They would kind of imbalance the balance, the scales, such that they would give less goods. Okay. So they were not honest people. Prophet Shu'aib, Jethro, when he came, he started preaching to them that this action is wrong. You're not being honest. This is not smart. You're cheating people. And so he tells them in Surah Hud, he says, my tribe, my people, my community, وَلَا تَنْقُصُوا الْمِكْيَالَ وَالْمِيزَانِ. Do not cheat the system. Do not change the balances such that it comes to your favor. You give less goods. Don't do this. And later on he would say, إِنْ أُرِيدُ إِلَّا الْإِصْلَاحَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُ. I want to spread knowledge and to fix the problems to the best of my ability. The best of my ability. So Prophet Shu'aib, he taught his community how to deal justly with people, how to become just. Sometimes people forget these things. That's why Imam Ali alayhi salam, he says that among the reasons God sent the prophets and the messengers is فَبَعَثَ إِلَيْهِمْ رُسُلَهُ وَوَاتَرَ أو فَبَعَثَ فِيهِمْ رُسُلَهُ وَوَاتَرَ إِلَيْهِمْ أَنْبِيَاءَهُ لِيَسْتَأْدُوهُمْ مِيثَاقَ فِطْرَتِهِ وَيُذَكِّرُوهُمْ مَنْسِيَّ نِعْمَتِهِ وَيَحْتَجُّوا عَلَيْهِمْ بِالتَّبْلِيغِ وَيُثِيرُوا لَهُمْ دَفَائِنَ الْعُقُولِ. This يُثِيرُوا لَهُمْ دَفَائِنَ الْعُقُولِ is interesting. To also make them think out of the box. يُثِيرُوا دَفَائِنَ الْعُقُولِ. يُثِيرُ إثارة من ثورة. Like to create a revolution, an intellectual revolution. One of the action that the prophets did is to create an intellectual revolution among their communities, to the best of their abilities. Shu'aib created a revolution, an intellectual revolution, that cheating, being dishonest, it's not right, it's wrong, you should not be doing it. That's one example. A second example the Quran mentions is Prophet Dawood. Prophet Dawood alayhi salam, God says, وَعَلَّمْنَاهُ صَنْعَةَ لَبُوسٍ لَكُمْ in Surah Al-Anbiya. We taught David, Prophet David, we taught him how to make the shield that they use in battles. The shield that people back then they used to use in battles to protect themselves. God says, we taught David how to do these things. In another ayah, Allah says, وَأَلَنَّا لَهُ الْحَدِيدِ. David had so much strength that he could use the iron to shape it in any form he wishes. And so he used it to make the shield. Now there's an interesting story about that. It is said that there was a wise man whose name is mentioned in the Quran by the name of Luqman. Luqman, there's a surah, there's a chapter in the Quran called Surah Luqman. Luqman lived at the same time of Dawood. They both lived at the same time. Luqman was a wise man, not a prophet of God. Dawood was a prophet of God, and a messenger. It is said one day Luqman was standing next to Dawood. He was standing next to him. As he was making the shield that they use in the wars, he saw him doing something. Luqman did not know what this was. This was something new. He has not seen this before. Luqman was a wise man. He did not speak much. He did not speak much. He used to reflect a lot more. I don't know if you've come across some people who, mashallah, they're like machines. You know, talking machines. You know, mashallah, they're non-stop. Yeah. People are encouraged to reflect a little bit. Think before you speak. You know? Imam Ali alayhi salam says, you know, the Prophet Muhammad's successor, he says, a wise man thinks and then speaks. A fool is the one who speaks and then thinks. Like, oh, I shouldn't have said this. So, Luqman was a wise man. He did not speak much. He did not talk much. He saw Dawood making this shield, this armor. So he was about to ask Dawood, Prophet Dawood, what is this? But then he said, you know what? No, let me keep quiet. No. Let me keep quiet. I'll just wait until he finishes. Maybe he'll tell me what it is. This was going on through his head. Indeed, Dawood alayhi salam, the Prophet, he makes a shield. Then after he makes it, he keeps it against his chest like this. And he says, this would be a good shield at the time of wars and battles. So Luqman says, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Thank you, O my Lord. All praise be to you. You kept me quiet. And he told me what's it all about. I didn't have to ask him. Dawood, according to the Quran, is the one who introduced the shield in combat, in wars. Now, how many battles were fought after that where shields were used? Today I was trying to do some rough research as to where did it come from. I couldn't find it. I tried to see who invented the shield. I tried to do some research, tried to read some here and there, but I couldn't find it. The Quran suggests it is Dawood. Dawood is the first one, David, to make these shields. And if we come to our Holy Prophet, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. If you take a look at Arabia, those of you who, when you have some time, go look at Arabia. Arabia, for decades, in fact for centuries, they lived in darkness. In darkness. The way that they used to generate income is through wars. When one tribe would gain some power, it would go invade another tribe and raid it. This is how they lived their lifestyle. The only tribe that was immune was the tribe of Mecca, Quraysh. They were the only one immune. And that's because they had the Kaaba. The Kaaba. Where the Muslims turn to face 5 times a day when they pray. The Kaaba was built by Prophet Ibrahim and Ismail alayhim salam. Abraham, the father of the prophets. He built it. And therefore, the people of that region, they gave reverence to the Kaaba. And they used to come even and perform a pilgrimage to the Kaaba. Because of their reverence to the Kaaba, they would not attack and raid Quraysh. Quraysh was immune. We read in Quraysh, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, لِإِلَافِ قُرَيْشٍ إِلَافِهِمْ رَحْلَةَ الشِّتَاءِ وَالصَّيْفِ فَلْيَعْبُدُوا رَبَّ هَذَا الْبَيْتِ الَّذِي أَطْعَمَهُم مِّن جُوعٍ وَآمَنَهُم مِّن خَوْفٍ. Quraysh, because of the traffic that used to come through Quraysh, every caravan that would go north or south would try to stop in Mecca because of its reverence. That generates income. So Quraysh were always generating income. They would not have to worry about food. There was always constant income coming in. And one thing they did not have to worry about was also security. Security. They didn't have to worry about security. They also had security. Other than them, the other tribes, they lived such a lifestyle where you go and attack someone else. Women had no respect. Women used to be inherited in the Arabian Peninsula before Islam. Inherited. Someone dies, you inherit the woman as well. They used to be passed on like goods. There was no political system. There was no social system. Education. History tells us that the number of people who knew how to read and write in Mecca were only 17. 17 people who knew how to read and write. That's it. Until the Prophet comes. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi comes. And then you see a revolution happening. All of the sudden, he arrives. The first verse revealed in the Quran says what? Iqra. What does Iqra mean? Read. Read. The first verse revealed in the Quran is read. This really created a revolution among Muslims. When he established a state, 13 years he stayed in Mecca. He was oppressed. He was harassed. He was beaten until he left and immigrated to Medina. In the city of Medina, there he established a society, an Islamic state. There he emphasized reading and writing. He emphasized to people how to read and write. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Let's do a second loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali. That we made it two, let's make it a third one. Very loud salawat ala Muhammad. When he went to Medina and he established the Islamic State, there he started teaching people, emphasizing to people about the significance of reading and writing. It is said when the first battle of Islam took place, the Battle of Badr, and that's something important. I mentioned this earlier, but it's good to mention it again. All the battles the Prophet Muhammad fought were in defense, not attack. When he immigrated to Medina, the people of Mecca, they raised an army and came to attack him in Medina. So like any sovereign nation would do, he got up and defended himself. So the first battle took place on the outskirts of Medina. The second battle also on the outskirts of Medina. He was being attacked and he defended himself. When the first battle took place, known as the Battle of Badr, on the outskirts of Medina, some people from Mecca became prisoners. The Muslims took some prisoners. And by the way, Islam highly respects prisoners and treats them with dignity. They did not put them in prisons. They put them in people's homes. So when you get a prisoner, you have to feed him, clothe him, take care of him. This is what Islam did to prisoners. They would not put them in prisons. This is at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. And the same thing for Imam Ali alayhi salam, when he became the Khalifa. They would not put people in prisons. In fact, there were not even prisons. They did not even have a prison. Sometimes when people used to create problems in the society, what Imam Ali used to do is he would take them and just embarrass them. Embarrass. It's called ta'zir, meaning you embarrass them so that they don't commit the same mistake again. And the way he used to embarrass them is he used to take sugar cane. Have you seen sugar cane? No. The sugar cane? He would take sugar cane and he would put the person inside a sugar cane cage. A cage made up of sugar cane. Everyone who goes back and forth, they would see this guy in a sugar cane, cage. So they'll be like laughing at them and they go. It makes them feel embarrassed, ashamed. So don't do this again, whatever you just did. At night, because it was sugar cane, people would break it and they would run away. At night, they would break the sugar cane and they would run away. The next day, Imam Ali would come and see that. He says, that's good, he's learned his lesson now. He won't do this again. So in a truly Islamic system, there are no prisons. There's no prison in a truly Islamic system. The prisoners, they used to keep them in people's homes. The Prophet then came to the prisoners and said, any one of you who knows how to read and write, the prisoners from the Battle of Badr. So these are people who came to attack the Muslims, who came to kill the Muslims. They were taken as captives. Those of them who knew how to read and write, the Prophet said, you know what? You teach 10 people how to read and write, and we'll let you go free. Go back. Teach 10 people how to read and write. So those of them who knew how to read and write would sit down and would teach 10 people how to read and write. Now these 10 would teach another 10. And those 10 would teach another 10. Within a matter of few years, you had hundreds of people becoming now able to read and write. And that opens a whole gate of knowledge when you're able to document, when you document things. Such that you find within few decades after the Prophet Muhammad, the Muslims became the leaders. They ruled almost 2/3 of the world. And look at the technologies and the inventions that they made. I gave a lecture a few months ago. It was a public lecture. And the title of it is, "The Prophet Muhammad is the father of modern civilization." Modern civilization that we observe today. We see a period of dormancy, 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 and then the Prophet comes. The minute he comes, then all of a sudden you find all the inventions and the generations and everything such. What happened all these years? Decades, centuries, what was going on? There were no prophets being sent to that region to ignite their thinking, to cause an intellectual revolution. And that's why we believe that any development that we observe in history is caused by the prophets. They come, they cause a revolution, they generate thinking, they stimulate the intellect. And that's what really makes the humanity progress to whatever we see today. With the arrival of the Prophet Muhammad, we reached the pinnacle. And hence, if you look at Muslim scholars and Muslim scientists, there is a professor from the UK, in the University of Manchester, Dr. Salim. He made a book, or wrote a book, 1001 Inventions. 1001 Inventions. If you go home, it's also, they made a nice movie about it. There's a nice clip, 1001 Inventions. And it's become a global exhibition in museums. Museums now, they go travel all the world, 1001 inventions. About some of the inventions made by Muslim scientists and Muslim scholars. He lists 1001 of them. Some museums in Britain, they actually exhibited this exhibition. It's become very famous now. You go today, you can go online later on, 1001 inventions, and you'll see. There you see how many inventions were made by Muslim scientists. In fact, even the Encyclopedia Britannica today, Encyclopedia Britannica, I was checking it a few months ago, they said that the development of the camera as we know it today, the camera, these days you have a camera in your pocket now, most of you have cameras in your pockets right now, with all these phones of yours. The major breakthrough came from a Muslim scientist by the name of Ibn al-Haytham. Ibn al-Haytham. He made a breakthrough in the lenses. And that breakthrough, according to the Encyclopedia Britannica, it became the foundation, the basis of the camera. That breakthrough. So the camera as we know it today, it began, of course, through many years of development and inventions and improvements. But Ibn al-Haytham, this Muslim scientist, scholar, his invention really caused a revolution. Where did that come from? Where were the Muslims before? Where were the people of Arabia before that? How come we don't have any much development? In fact, I know personally, I've heard a professor at the University of Tehran in Iran. He says that us Iranians, the Persians, we had a civilization. We had a civilization. But we had a handful of philosophers and intellectuals in our civilization until Islam came to us. And the professor is still alive today. Dr. Asadi Garmaoudi is his name. Some of you may know him. He's a professor at the University, not the University of Tehran, another university, but in the city of Tehran. He says we had, as Persians, few intellectuals, but when Islam came to us, all of a sudden there was, an intellectual revolution. We started having so many more intellectuals, so many more philosophers. Where were they beforehand? Islam came and brought this. So going back to the story, Dhul Qarnayn goes to these nomads, to these very primitive life, people who are living a very primitive life, but his coming to them changes their life. And that's why there's that theory suggesting that every society, every community, when it progresses, there is some root to those who were sent by God, the prophets, who ignited that intellectual revolution. With that, we have about 10-15 minutes for questions, and I would welcome the questions from our guests, especially the ladies' side. I would like to start with them first. As I say, ladies first.
I just want to say for people who want to go and check it tonight, it's 1001 invention.
Good. Yeah. 1001 inventions. 1001 inventions. Yes. Do we have any questions?
I'm passing the mic over there, so if somebody has questions.
I work in healthcare, and how do I help individuals who have such a negative aspect of Islam? For example, the Bible is very bloody, the Christian Bible, but the Quran is not. What can I do to help people that I work with and individuals that I see? What can I say to them to educate them?
Educate them about, sorry?
Islam.
Islam, okay.
Because the world has such a negative aspect in all.
Right.
Terrorists are terrorists. They're not Muslims.
Correct, yes. Unfortunately, today's media is trying to paint everyone with the same brush. I mentioned a few days ago, this country is a blessed country. Thank God, I come from Canada and it's another blessed country, But even in this country where we are really blessed, where we have a lot of intellectuals, yet we still have a lot of criminals. Unfortunately, there are the murderers, the rapists, people who just don't want to benefit society, but rather to harm it. In Canada, we have tens of thousands of such people in prisons today for major crimes. And by major crimes, I mean rape, murder, some major crimes. The US is 10 times the population of Canada, so I'm assuming here you probably have hundreds of thousands of maybe such people in your prisons. Okay. Just because there are hundreds of thousands of bad people, can we say that all these Americans are bad? Look at them. They have hundreds of thousands of criminals. What a country is this? Well, that's nonsense, right? You'll have the bad apples and you have the good apples. In Islam, we don't have 300, 400 million people living in Muslim world, but around 2 billion people living in the Muslim world today. 2 billion. And out of those, you will have those people who have a particular agenda and are corrupt, and they want to propagate their agenda, regardless of what it is. So one thing where we can educate people, well, I appreciate you coming here tonight. That's one step. You can ask them in the future, and I'm sure the executive here and the people in charge, they would welcome to have them come over here. You can invite them. Tell them, we'll take you to the mosque where I visited. And go see for yourself. These are people who have immigrated here, just like the rest of us. They are working, some of them as professionals, some as laborers, and they're contributing to our economy, to our society, just like you and I are. Right here in this room, we have the doctors, we have the engineers, we have the professionals, we have the people also who are working. And they're all working for the benefit of the society. Reminding them of this is important. Telling them that don't paint everyone with the same brush. There are bad apples everywhere. You have them in Canada, you have them in America, you have them everywhere. Okay? Every society has them. But let's not paint everyone with the same brush. Okay? by inviting them to come over here, interact with some Muslims. Let them have coffee. I'm sure some of these guys, here, like Dr. Mafi and everyone else around here, tell them, I have some friends of mine whom I would like to have coffee with.
Tea.
Can you?
I like tea.
You like tea? Okay, no, I prefer coffee. No problem. Remember, since the Boston tea, problem, you guys, the Americans don't like tea very much. They prefer coffee. But let them sit down, because I think, ignorance is our human beings, first enemy and the worst enemy. It's being ignorant, because we don't know. Once we become to know, then that's one way we can overcome these issues. So I really appreciate that. So explain to them, I've been to a mosque, talk to them about your own experiences. Tell them that, there are bad apples everywhere. Invite them to come over here. Invite them to sit down and have coffee with some Muslims. Let them meet them. Let them see them. And hopefully this will change their ideas. If you do your share, your part, he does his part, she does her part, I do my part, then we can really change the society. Yes, sir.
What are the Muslim rules when a person at end of life is being maintained by machines? The standards from which a person when can that machine be turned off?
That's a very good question. The question. Yes, the question is, what is the Muslim's perspective when a person is gone into what the medical term calls a vegetative state? A person who may be in a vegetative state and he is being supported with tubes, basically. What does Islam say about that? The Islamic definition of death is when the soul leaves the body. Okay. In medical terms, they consider brain dead as dead. Islam does not consider that. Okay. And therefore, from the Islamic perspective, if it is possible to maintain life, to sustain it, even through tubes, then tubes should be used to keep that life. Until one day the heart quits beating. And basically there is no more symptom of life present in that individual. So the heart stops beating, you won't find any more signals and enzymes and hormones, etc. being reactions basically occurring in the body anymore. When the body starts to cool down after maybe an hour or so, give or take, these are all symptoms that the person has now died, and therefore that's what we consider death.
I just had one comment. In my tradition, I don't embrace a day-long fast, and I'd like to compliment how well you did and speak so long and kept your clarity of thoughts.
Thank you very much.
Fasting like that.
Practice makes perfect. Any other questions? In the medical profession, as you just mentioned, there is something that you might encounter. Okay? And it's good to educate some of the medical doctors about this. Sometimes you might go through this. And that is, sometimes you might get a female Muslim patient with her, headscarf and the hijab, and she wants to be examined by a male physician. Now, sometimes you might have her saying that, I prefer a female physician, please. Now, I've given a seminar once to some physicians about this, so that they don't have a reaction, a negative reaction. What do you mean, here I am a doctor, I can treat you. Just so that they could be aware that this may arise, this may happen. And so if there is a female, even resident or a female doctor who's in-house, maybe send them over to treat these female patients who might come your way. Another thing is you might have some female patients, again, God forbid, but in some rooms where they are receiving some treatments. And maybe, again, they don't want any male nurse or physician or anyone to enter before them being notified. So that's something also to keep aware of other doctors, and other nurses in the ward, that this might arise, this issue might come up. Okay. Yes?
Does that same thing work in the other direction? For instance, is it okay for a male to be examined by a female doctor?
Well, that's the thing. So sometimes we'll have a male as well. You know, it's more prominent, you know, in the females. You know, we don't get it, because usually there are male doctors, physicians. Usually they're around, you know. But sometimes you might run in less female physicians, sometimes. At least in Canada, we've come across this issue. But yes, you might have a Muslim man, for example, who says, I would prefer to be examined by a female, please. By a male. You know. Maybe you would want a female too, you know, you never know. But, so you might have it both ways as well. Right. Okay. And for those of you who are in education, you know, and every year Ramadan moves forward by about 10 or so days. So this year Ramadan began approximately with the beginning of July. Next year it will be the end of June. The following year it will be the middle of June. So those of you who are in education, you know, you may come across some students, you know, and June is the exam months. So you might have some students who might look fatigued, who might look tired. And just so that you're familiar, you're aware that it is the month of Ramadan coming up in June over the next few years. So if some of your students request some help or request some assistance, maybe taking an exam, if possible at a different date or something like this is something that would be greatly appreciated for those of you who are in the education system here. So you might come across students within the next 3-4 years as Ramadan shifts over the school year. And the days are quite long, you know, June is quite long, so they'll be fasting for about 20 hours or so. And so that might cause them some fatigue, it might cause them some, you know, distress sometimes, so at least you're aware, those of you who are in the education field. I thank you all very much for joining us, God bless you, and hopefully we're going to be praying now. We'll be praying the evening prayers and the night prayers, and you'll see us how we pray. One reason for the essence of the prayers is our submission and humility to God. So you'll see us during the prayers, we're going to be bowing down, prostrating, and we prostrate on a piece of clay to remind us that one day this is where we're going to end up. So it's a sign of modesty and humbleness. So hopefully we'll you'll observe us do this, and you can feel free to join us if you wish as well. And then we'll be breaking our fast, we're having the meal afterwards where we can have further discussion, hopefully. Thank you very much. God bless you. Take care.
Need few of you